Hello and welcome to No CB, a grand strategy podcast. This is for the week of the 8th of September, 2021. Well, yeah, it's like okay. Well, it's because I have US date format on mine, so I'm like, wait, is that September 8th or August 9th? Because they're kind of close together.
Look, it's been a year.
Lambert, are Lambert and Loris muted?
No, we're just not. Are we?
Oh,
Loris, hello?
hello.
That would be weird if Lambert and Loris were muted, because Lambert and I should be on the same.
Yeah, and I'm
audio
streaming.
channel. Okay. Okay, well, they're back.
I don't think
cool.
we were ever muted. It was just we weren't making noises.
That's weird. I didn't actually change anything to fix that either. So,
okay, cool.
A miracle of Twitch, I guess. So
Seems to be okay now. Yeah. We are. Rose is still out. I think she's gonna possibly be back next week. We also might have a guest on next week, so there's a little something to look forward to. Let's start off with some news so we can just bullshit for the second half of the show like we did last week. Because of how
Anbadar again.
Yeah, exactly. Because of how things fell, we ended up talking about 2 Victoria 3 dev diaries last week, so we don't have a new dev diary this week. But we do have a teaser from Martin's Twitter.
Course. We go straight to a teaser.
Yes, showing political movements, which are something we have not seen before in any form, even at PDXCon, which is kind of cool. So, private schools, they've got a support value and a radicalism value. It seems fairly similar to Victoria too.
People radicalizing over getting private schools. Like that idea.
Right. Yeah. Also, he says that it's from a certain well-known republic, but I cannot tell from the forehead and eyebrows who that guy is.
Yeah, they're not very distinct eyebrows. They're pretty thin.
Yeah. Like, I was trying to figure out based on like the letters that are sticking up, like maybe it's
first.
Andrew. It could be Andrew Jackson, but that doesn't look like Andrew Jackson, so I don't know.
You know what? I think it is Andrew Jackson. Those letters do line up quite nicely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just a skinhead now. That's.
Because I mean, public schooling was definitely a thing in the U.S. during the 1800s, but I guess we'll learn more about this tomorrow, so we'll talk about it on next week's episode.
I'm excited. It's certainly like a bit of Victoria, which I love. For most bits, political machinations of the
I'm curious how this is going to interact with interest groups, if it's going to be totally separate, or if like an entire interest group is going to support a movement, or if pops are just deciding independently which movements they want to support. Which could be interesting if like the pops themselves support one thing, but like the interest groups they're a part of does not support it.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
I mean, especially with schools. Schools is an interesting one because although it almost certainly benefited for lower classes, it was not like a bubbling up reform. It's very top down, but it almost certainly benefited loads of people. Nobody was like, clamoring to go. There was no like farmer going like, "Oh, I demand my kid go to school," because that farmer was like, "No, I want my kid working on my field. Thank you very much. I don't want him wasting his time in school. I want him earning money in the mill for the family, that sort of thing." So it'd be cool. It'd be cool to see what demographics support what movements and why. Schools.
Oh, I didn't introduce anybody at the start of the show, did I? My brain was like, you skipped something.
Sorry, we had nameplates next to all of our names.
Yeah, the people you're hearing right now are Father Loris and Lambert. If you're very confused because this is the first episode you've ever tuned into,
which is fine. I mean, that's another thing. It's not episodic, I guess. So
yeah. Well, Stan Lee said, every comic book is somebody's first comic book. So I'm sure every episode of No CB is somebody's first episode. So
There's something more to talk about Victoria 3 as well.
And what is that?
On the subreddit recently, there have been about a dozen posts about One Proud Bavarian's crackpot theory video. The one where he thinks that the military is kind like all of the troop movement micro that you do in literally every Paradox game is probably going to not be a thing anymore.
Oh, that would be cool.
No, it would be terrible. It would ruin the game.
I don't think that will happen, personally.
Yeah, there's been about a dozen Reddit threads about this with like hundreds of comments in each one. And there's a bit of a civil war going on between the crackpotists and the anti-crackpotists, and it's getting way out of hand. It is a bit mad.
I want to be. I'm joining the crackpot faction because if they do completely revamp combat in a way that is completely innovative and I can't pronounce that word, I find that really interesting. But then again, it could go both ways. When you do something completely revolutionary, something like that, it's either going to be shit or it's going to be amazing.
I feel like so. I don't know. I think right now, like where Paradox is at, I don't know that this would be like the wisest time for them to try something like that could alienate such a huge portion of the fan base. Since, with everything that's happened in the last year or so, they kind of need Victoria 3 to be a win, and they kind of need it to be a crowd pleaser.
Yeah. And
I think if they were going to do something weird like abstracting out the military when that's, that's kind of been the focus for a lot of people, especially like EU4. In terms of EU4, I feel like a lot of people play it as more of a little bit more of a war game.
Yeah. I mean, Vicky's time period lends itself to strange military stuff, though, because you're covering an area which involves World War One and Crimean War and Boer War. You got all sorts of things happening war-wise. Guerrilla warfare basically been invented. Well, it hasn't been invented, but it's been adapted since the
modern guerrilla warfare.
Yeah. We talked about the Boer War like 2 weeks ago a bit. I mean, that was famously very guerrilla war.
I mean,
trench warfare
the way,
and old-fashioned.
Exactly. Like the way that combat, I feel like, should work in late game Victoria 3 is definitely like closer to Hearts of Iron than it is to EU. Like, the difference being that the front lines don't move very much.
Exactly,
but it kind of becomes kind of a grinding out which side is going to collapse first. Versus a war of maneuver. Like on the Eastern Front, some of the other fronts, there was still some of that going on, but the Western Front especially
does it perfectly well, right? In the early game of Vicky 2, up until you get machine gun tech, warfare is very maneuver based. You're trying to maneuver around, get the best positions, and then hit a smaller part of their force with an overwhelming part of your force. It's all about maneuver. As soon as you get machine guns, warfare drastically changes into very frontline based. You always want to be the defender. And then that changes again once you get access to first bolt action rifles and then gas attack.
Like, big one,
Vicky 2 really does a remarkable job of simulating the change in technology better than any other Paradox game ever had.
I feel like there's some big flaws in the Vicky 2 way, though. I mean,
what can't be fixed though by the quality of life things that we've seen in other games so far.
Right. Like that's what I was going to say is really what Vicky 2 is lacking is the tools to manage like a static front war. You're doing a lot of micro because the armies still behave like EU3 or EU4 armies do in terms of you can't like draw a front line and be like, okay, fill in along this line or whatever. So I think with good UI and good tools, you could solve a lot of those problems.
Yeah, like things like the army template, the macro builder, like these kinds of things I think would make Vicky 2's combat like just perfectly reasonable, like for any kind of situation. I don't see much of a problem with it. And yeah, there's like, oh, but I don't like micro in the late game. There's like 100 stacks, and it's like, if you just have, I don't want Imperator Rome's automated armies. I don't like them. I think they're garbage. They don't work.
Yeah.
But something like,
done.
I want to draw a front line here, or I can click on an army and then draw a line on the map. It's like, okay, this army will then garrison these areas, and you need to make terrain a bigger thing, and just the ability to sort of have one army in multiple places at the same time to simulate that, you know, the different regiments are garrisoning different areas, like that kind of thing would work out nicely. Some kind of zone of control system would also work really well.
Yeah, I think as long as we don't have a Vicky problem where basically in the late game whoever attacks loses, unless you outnumber you on like 10-1, or the gas attack problem, which is if you have gas attack you win.
Generals.
Well, that's the other thing is like I almost feel like you need to bring back like the military ideas system from March of the Eagles to model World War I, because by the end of the war, we had started to develop move and fire tactics, and then suddenly offense wasn't suicide mission again. And move and fire, shock infantry is basically what we still use in infantry warfare today, to the extent that we even still really use it at all, as opposed to like combined arms. So yeah, there should be a lot of shifts. Tokarva in chat pointing out that the U.S. and Crimean Wars, especially in a game that uses pops, were a huge shift in how wars are fought, because you finally had you could give 1,000 guys guns that could shoot accurately at a reasonable range, and the casualties just kind of skyrocket. Versus the like Napoleonic line infantry phase of warfare. It'll be really interesting to see how they tackle all of that, especially since they've been very, very careful to not show us really anything about the military side of things yet. So Crackpot versus anti-Crackpot can continue fighting their war on the various social media forums. We'll find out.
Sign me up for the crackpots, because I love thinking at Cyberbox. I think Wiz as a game designer, not to pin everything on Wiz, but not to gush too bad, but I think he's very good at working out Cyberbox and making new drastic changes to the format that end up being very, very good.
I just want to have combat that I can directly influence, rather than leaving it on the hands of the AI.
I wouldn't want the AI controlling it.
I'm anti-Crackpot.
To be honest, like by Crackpot, I don't actually know. I haven't seen Vampire Barbarian's videos. Link it to me afterwards. I'll watch it because that sounds really interesting. But I will watch that. But I probably, if the gist is that the AI is doing it all for you, I wouldn't want that. But maybe if you had like some more abstracted military, that would be pretty interesting. Something that isn't moving units around directly could be interesting. But I don't expect it too much. I expect it's going to be different for Vicky 2 by quite a lot.
Oh yeah, I don't think anyone wants a copy paste of Vicky 2's combat. But having Vicky 2's combat with changes to quality of life, that I can't see that failing. So it's a safe option as well.
I'd also like to, compared to Vicky 2, I'd like to see them tweak air warfare a little bit. I mean, even though airplanes weren't a huge deal, at least not as big as they were in World War II, but like the idea that they're just kind of like an attachment to your infantry units.
Like just
I always felt
fancy cavalry, pretty much, aren't they?
Yeah, I feel like there was more they could have done with that.
Especially considering like they want to make the game as moddable as possible. One of the more used or made mods or played mods is going to be either a World War II version of Vicky, or a Cold War version of Vicky, or a modern day version of Vicky. So having a robust like aerial combat system is probably going to be helpful, just so that people can like slot into place the these other eras without issue.
Yeah, I want
to. Would be beneath.
Yeah, I was gonna say when Victoria 3 Embanar comes out, I want to be able to have my elven fighter aces soar through the skies and
fantasy mods, dragons and wyverns and all them fighting.
Yeah.
There's no dragons in Embanar, is there?
That we
not
know
anymore.
Yeah.
But there's more fantasy that can be there.
Embanar's the only fantasy. As long as I get my
maybe
goblin
they come
armies.
back. Yeah. The dragons are like, we're back.
Kobolds,
motherfuckers.
Yeah.
Just like Skyrim. Yeah.
Casting the fly spell on yourself, and now you fight in the aerial combat theater.
Yes, that'd be amazing. Yeah. Don't have a transition, but we also have
CK3.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
CK3. We got to see a lot more of the actual court than we have in any previous Dev Diary.
Yeah.
This time around, including a Muslim court, which I don't believe they have showed publicly. I got to see a very, very much worse looking early version of this at one point. This looks like 10 times cooler. And this Dev Diary is all about the business of holding court, which is basically they're just adding the game Yes, Your Grace into Crusader Kings 3.
No, they're adding Sims Medieval. That's what they're adding.
Yeah, /Sims Medieval / all the throne room scenes from the Dragon Age Origins Awakening expansion. I like this. I actually, Lambert, I think you were saying you're not as hot on this expansion so far.
Yeah, it seems like it looks like it was an awful lot of effort to do this. Like, I'm not taking anything away. It looks like an awful lot of effort went into this. But this ain't Crusader Kings to me. Yeah, it's the King's Court and all that, but it's like I'm more looking for like mechanical changes to different regions, like Byzantine feudal systems. Like, this seems like, hey, look, it's all super flashy and stuff, and it's like I don't care.
See, I really like this direction for the bigger expansions because I think that this expansion is kind of following in the spirit of expansions like Way of Life and Conclave, where it's like instead of fleshing out, I don't know, a specific culture or overhauling warfare or something like that, it's adding more RPG elements, and I really like that, especially because we've discussed this at least a couple times on this show. But at this point, I feel like if you just blob, and like if you played Crusader Kings 2 as much as most of us have, like Crusader Kings 3 is too easy. Like it's really too easy. Yeah. Once you get past a certain stage, once you kind of have your succession laws in place, and you have an empire, it's like at that point you kind of can't lose. And what I'm hoping for this expansion is it'll let me be like, all right, I'm King of Bohemia, and now I'm just going to play a different game. I'm just going to be the best king that I can, visual novel RPG.
Yeah.
I'd be perfectly happy with that. Because Conquest just gets boring. Like I want to feel like I am like a lord in Game of Thrones who has my little realm, and I have to deal with all of the challenges facing that realm.
Yeah.
And I'm not just looking to like paint the map. So they said
it's all I'm going to say. Like, yeah, it's a roleplay game. So yeah, I'm going to go into the mindset of I'm going to roleplay as this character. Well, I'm role-playing as a character that is very like if I'm role-playing as a historical character, say Haston of whatever those places called, right? His whole deal was he wanted to conquer things.
Yeah.
So if I'm role playing as Haston, I'm going to be conquering things, and it's too easy to conquer things. Like Haston had it a lot more difficult than I am, so it's this. That's the issue there as well.
This is something I hope that's in the game that hasn't been brought up. I mean, like when you're out on campaign, I don't want to be having court stuff. I want to be actually absent from my court if I'm a Viking raider and I'm off raiding. I don't want to be in a
the best of both worlds would be that when you're out raiding, you have like your army camp or your ship.
Oh yeah.
And get events based on that. Maybe that's something we'll see down the line. But
I would like to see in the future an overhaul to the regency system. I want the regent to be the actual ruler while I go elf, and I want to come back and maybe the regents fuck things up. Or I want to be given a regency while my liege is off fighting in Jerusalem, and maybe I can fuck things up, or maybe give
take
some
the throne for yourself.
Yeah, maybe
just
embezzle some money.
Lock him out of the castle.
Lock him out of the castle. I'm the king of England now.
It's like,
sorry, Lionheart.
Exactly.
You fucked off, and now I've given all of York to my cousin. So.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's going to be, like they said, about over 100 of these kind of petitions that you'll see, which is a lot. I'm sure that we'll start to see a lot of repeats because I play way too much Crusader Kings, so I'll probably see most of them within like the first 2 weeks after the DLC comes out.
There's a lot of blank space on these events, though.
Yeah,
I guess is there going to be artwork there or something? Because that's an awful lot of blank space. Like,
I hope so, or I hope that they'll crunch the window down if they don't need it all for text. Because I don't want to be looking at a bunch of blank UI. I want to be looking at my court, or I want to be looking at some cool piece of art that depicts the situation that's going on.
Yeah,
you could have crunched it down for the dev diary as well. I don't know.
Yeah. Because that's also, like, my issue right now with the dueling system is that, like, just way too much of it is text. So it doesn't really feel like an RPG battle. It just kind of feels like a choose your own adventure. And I think that without changing anything mechanically, I think with just UI, they could improve that duel system a lot. Just by making it look more like a battle screen. Like, that would be
illustrations of different your event says that you use an axe and like dig it into someone's chest. Give me an artist rendition of that happening. You could even use the character models. Like you could just have character models themselves doing it. Yeah.
I would rather have like some sort of like a visual, if not a health bar, like if they don't want to be that specific, then maybe like a heart that gets like smaller and like blacker as you take damage, rather than just like every turn you're just reading, you feel slightly wounded and think that you are slightly in danger of making a mistake. And then I click another button, it's like, you are moderately wounded and feel that you are slightly in danger of making a mistake or something. Like, I don't want that to be text. Give me a GUI for that.
Give me an animation, like the end. At the end of every Troy battle, there's like the cool animation of fighting that.
And this is all
too much to ask.
No, I'm asking for that. I'm demanding it now.
Yeah.
How does it static? Like use the models, but like have it be static.
Just you know what? Just go ahead and add like a God of War real-time combat system to Crusader Kings 3, where I take control of my character in third person, and I actually can fight the duel myself.
Now, see, we're already adding mount&blade warbands courts, so might as well just add mount&blade warbands, combat as well.
Yeah, so somebody sent me that mod where you can like export a CK3 save and fight the battle in Warband. I haven't tried it yet. It sounds like dubious. Like it sounds like it wouldn't work that well, but I'd be curious to try.
Yeah, I never tried it.
Win every single battle from now on.
Well, that's the thing.
You lose battles that you really should because you just take it out by a crossbow turn, like in the first seconds.
Yeah, I was doubtful, but the mount&blade warband Bannerlord modding team has gone crazy. I mean, the stuff they've made it like the campaign online, or people are working on making online.
Oh wow!
Which is amazing. I didn't think that would be even possible, but they are. It's.
I'm waiting on what's the mod called? The Old Realms. Have you seen any of this?
Oh,
no. What is it?
Absolutely, it's Warhammer. Let's be honest. It's Warhammer, but oh god, it's so good.
Well, there's Warsword's Conquest for for Warband, wasn't there? Which was really good.
Yeah.
Even if the guns were really overpowered.
I'm still waiting for the right time to get back into Bannerlord, because I seriously haven't played, like, it had like that huge wave of popularity, and then we all kind of stopped playing it, and I haven't gone back to it since then.
Yeah, I'm waiting for a multiplayer campaign, which is in the works. And as soon as that's out, I'm going to be playing that.
I don't know what I'm waiting for. I guess I'm just waiting to see a tweet that makes me go, "Oh, I got to try that."
Yeah.
So
they're reworking the terrain system. So when you go into a battle now, like rather than it being a pre-made map, it's going to be built around the actual map of Bannerlord. Say if it's a bridge.
That sounds cool in theory. It's also why battles in a lot of Total War games for a while were super boring. Because when Total War tried to do that, like most battlefields ended up being a mostly flat plain with maybe some trees on it. And I kind of like that they've gone back for Warhammer to the handcrafted battle maps that are actually balanced and have interesting tactical trade-offs. So I'm not sure whether I like that or not, but I will be happy to not see the same damn canyon again every time I fight a battle in like the southern half of the map.
Or do what I do.
A mix can be made. I think having a mix is all right. Because the worst battles were the ones that were just full of trees. Like, I don't want to fight in a forest, especially when you
Horse
have
archers
or eyes. They did improve it by letting you turn off foliage, but it's still really irritating to fight in a forest.
Yeah.
Although I will say, Total War Troy, as far as I can tell, does not have the ability to turn off foliage.
I haven't seen that either. Have either of you messed much with Mythos yet?
No, I haven't touched it yet.
I've played the Mythic mode. It's the game that should have been released.
Yeah, I mean,
I will say, considering it's now on Steam, it is the game that released for the vast majority of people who are going to play the game.
Yeah.
So I thought you were talking about Warband when you're saying about Forest, because man, I couldn't stand fighting the Forest. And
What
I would do is go into a battle and go, "Ooh, is this a flat field for my horse archers? No, I'll retreat and fight again. Oh, is this a flat field for my horse archers? No, retreat.
Yeah.
Oh, it's a flat field. Great for my horse archers.
And
I'll fight it."
And ladies and gentlemen, this is why the Mongols never conquered Poland.
that entirely makes sense, though. That is exactly what your horse archers would do. It's like, oh, we're not fighting you in the forest.
Yeah,
I'm on a horse. I can make that decision.
Yeah, but
wherever the steppe ends, that's our borders.
In the current situation, like you'd literally be in the same place on a map, but you'd just be like going out in out of menus to see what map loads by random. But now with a new system, like, you can actually position yourself. Say if you've got a horse archer heavy army, you can see on the actual main map, oh, here's a forest, here's a field, here's a river, and go, oh, I'll just bait the army over a little bit, and then bang, now we're fighting on flat terrain. Or if you're the opposite and you're fighting with horse archers, and you go, oh, come into these woods, my precious little Mongols.
Exactly.
Fight me here.
Yeah.
I will say fighting with a horse archer heavy army is really boring. Like fighting with a lot of cavalry in general, I find really boring. Because if you're fighting with a lot of heavy cavalry on your side, they just get in the fucking way.
Well,
I want to fight. Get out of the way.
I think it's kind of realistic, because if you're in like a medieval setting and you had 250 heavy cavalry, you could have probably conquered like a good chunk of the world. It's like, I mean, they were like the tanks of their day. There's not really much a bunch of peasant levies can do against 250 elite heavy cavalry.
I'll tell you what's really fun to do is, if you're playing somebody with heavy cavalry, is you get up onto a hill and you watch the battle top down, and you can set your lineup troops, and they'll go along, and then you can command your heavy army to go round them and bang, hammer and anvil them, and it looks amazing. The cavalry charge looks incredible. And it's semi-effective, but it looks cool. That's the important thing.
Yeah, for sure.
I like this mod you linked for too, Lambert.
Do you see the GIFs at the bottom?
For those who are listening, I guess there's some really beautiful models for this mod. Oh, and there's a magic system.
Yeah, with GIFs at the bottom.
With
it looks
fireball
really cool.
And magic missile.
I like how they're using the character from Vermintide on the bottom.
Oh yes.
I can't remember what her name is.
Sienna.
Sure, I'll go with that. Yeah, I think it looks interesting as hell.
Sienna.
Yeah,
looks cool.
Nice.
Look forward to
Being
that.
able to summon skeletons and everything as well.
So that's the Old Realms.
Right.
Is there any files?
You know what else?
Download? No, sadly.
You know what else is an old realm? The Kingdom of Mali.
Yeah. This is. I've got some thoughts about this one.
Yeah. So, and there's a bombshell in the comments too that is almost more interesting than the rest of the dev diary.
Oh.
But yeah, so EU4, they are the next content patch is going to be focused on sub-Saharan Africa. It's going to have they said several regional focus trees and then quite a few specific ones for individual nations as well.
Yeah.
The first one they're showing is Mali. They start out in decline with a disaster, kind of like Majapahit does in Southeast Asia, and they have to go down their mission tree to avoid it, basically. Hopefully this time they'll put in a way to avoid it without the DLC, if you don't have that. But yeah, the really cool thing that they could do is they can basically crash the entire economy of Europe.
Yeah.
If you spend, is it 150,000 or 15,000? I'm having a hard time reading that number of zeros. It's 15,000 ducats.
Yeah, which is a bargain for what it does. Like what it does is
yeah.
I mean it makes everyone's gold mines useless.
Everyone with a capital in Europe.
Oh, sorry, it doesn't. That was one of the big things. As far as I remember, production efficiency doesn't actually affect gold mines.
Well, they said it's supposed to be goods produced. That tooltip is up in the air. So yeah, it's going to shut down every gold mine in Europe. Give every country plus 1.5 inflation per percentage of trade income in relation to total income. So like if you're making more than 75%, if you're making more than 75% of your income from trade, you're going to be at 100% inflation.
Yep.
It's yeah.
I mean that's just broken. Like if most European nations by any point where Mali's going to be this powerful is going to be making most of their money through trade, and getting to 100 inflation.
50% is a pretty reasonable level.
Yeah.
I'm gonna bet that this is gonna be probably changed before release. They did mention.
I hope not.
Oh really?
Unless you are a player, that's not going to happen. The AI doesn't bank 50.
Yeah, but no multiplayer is I'm worried about.
Well, they also
if one player banks and spends 15 grand to crash everyone's economy, good on them.
If 15 grand's not that much, though,
fucking amazing.
They also said in multiplayer, player nations in Europe will only receive 10% of these effects. So you're not going to be able to use it to grief other players, but you can use it to completely fuck over the AI.
Absolutely weak. Just fucking do it. Go ham. Let it be a thing. Have some balls, man. Come on. Make it happen.
You can make everyone play with a mod, but they're like, why are we installing this mod? You're playing as Mali and you're making us install a mod? I wonder.
Who plays vanilla multiplayer at this point?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know. I've like developed a little mods that we use to like basically.
Oh yeah.
Make the game better for multiplayer with all sorts of things, and I suspect I will remove this because it's so bullshit.
This is amazing, and it's only going to happen if somebody plays Mali. As soon as somebody clicks on Mali, everyone's like, "Wait, we've got a fucking target. Let's go."
Well,
I have no problem with this at all. Like, the only thing I have a problem is they're trying to nerf it.
I don't know. Here's the thing: is I feel like if you're a really good player, it's not that hard to get 15,000 ducats.
It's really easy to get 15,000 ducats.
Yeah, like
you're going to be swimming
with gold,
and you've got this absolutely just ridiculously overpowered estate, which basically it makes it so that gold provinces don't become exhausted ever.
Right, and it reduces your gold inflation by 100%.
Yeah. So basically, if you have a gold province as Mali, you could just pile development in it. It's just an infinite source of money, and there's no downsides at all. And
minus absolutism.
Right, 30 max absolutism is pretty big. I think that might be the highest I've seen for any estate privilege.
That's just having a republic, though, isn't it? Basically.
Yeah.
I mean, and you get that from having the English monarchy, which you stuck with, like for
English monarchy is a shit mechanic, though.
Yeah.
It should be deleted.
I also
I don't like it at all, basically.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I never play anytime I have the choice. Like I never pick the Parliament option because I just don't like how parliaments work in EU4.
Especially it's like, you've completely gotten rid of the what's the button in the middle called? Oh. Yeah, calling your nobles. Whatever it is, they give you a mission thing for each of your
diet. Yeah.
The diet. That's the one. It's like, so England, as soon as it had a parliament, no longer had like anyone with any power at all other than the king.
It's also like the diet mechanic is a better mechanic than the parliament mechanic, and it was introduced. It was introduced after parliaments were introduced, and like it's a better design, and so it's like, we're gonna make you go back to this old version. It's just like nations that have factions. It's like, hey, remember EU3 Divine Wind? Yeah, we're gonna rewind your game back to like an 8-year-old design idea. Or
Johan is in chat.
You picked a country that
I can't see
it's just a bad feature these days. Agreed. It scales really badly is the biggest issue with it. It scales horribly. As you become bigger, the amount of demands that you have to basically sacrifice to get your exactly the same level bonus, it gets exponentially higher. It's just
I like the idea of introducing regional and cultural representation into a republic in like an EU4 type game. I think that is an interesting design goal to have, but parliaments just I usually just don't want to mess with them these days. But here's the other bombshell is if you scroll down in the comments to the developer comments a little bit, I believe it was Johan said they are not planning on adding any more provinces to EU4 at this point.
Changes.
Yeah, is it?
Yeah, we're not planning on changing the map more in EU4's life cycle. Tired of people's save games being broken. The one place where I would maybe want them to reconsider this is South America. Because South America needs a rework, and I feel like you're going to have to add more provinces to do it justice. Also, I kind of assume that every major patch is going to break my save games anyway. So maybe some other people
complaining about my save's broken. It's like, how long have you played EU for? Right? If it's a short amount of time, right? Understandable, but suck it up. If it's a long time, just quit your whinge. At this point, you know how to roll back,
right?
And if you don't, learn. Like I don't see the. I don't care about the people who are getting the save games broken. Like it's your own fault at this point.
Yeah, I'm glad Sub-Saharan Africa is getting some more flavor.
I just hope that they add malaria. That's what I'm hoping.
That's the. I think I mentioned on Twitter that like my biggest request for EU4 that still hasn't been touched yet is the fact that so it's a game where it's not. You're generally not going to get a historical outcome most of the time, but it's supposed to be able to produce historical outcomes. And I feel like with where colonization is at right now, it will never produce a historical outcome. Like every province in South America will be colonized by 1780. They're like unless the Native Americans. A lot of times now, the Native Americans will unite into some big federation state in the Midwest, and then you won't have all of North America be colonized, but there still won't be the areas that were not colonized yet in 1821, of which there were still a few even in North America. I think just overall colonization needs to be scaled back, slowed down, disincentivized. If you look at a map of Africa in 1821, the European presence was tiny. They had, some very small trade posts along the coast.
I think
and then the Cape Colony.
specifically in Africa. I think it has to be sped up in Asia and slowed down in Africa somehow, because I think Dusty Indies never form naturally. India never gets conquered entirely by Europeans, almost entirely. So, slow down in Africa, certainly, but you could do that by having a malaria mechanic,
right?
Which is a reason
and
why Africa didn't get colonized.
In multiplayer, that's one thing, but I think especially for if it's AI nations, like maybe they should just get to a point where, like, okay, we have a foothold on the Gold Coast, we checked off that mission, like, we're not interested in colonizing into the interior of Africa anymore. Like, we're going to move on to other things unless we lose so much trade power in this node that we have to plop down a couple more outposts to make that happen. So but yeah, like in South America especially, this is part of the other reason I think maybe we could do with having more provinces in South America, is because if you look at even the maps we've seen of the Victoria 3 map at game start, is like, there's huge parts of South America that were not colonized yet. Even 15 years after the end of EU4. So something to check that a little bit so the entire map is not colored in by the end of the game. I would appreciate, just from a standpoint of feeling like my game resulted in a historically plausible outcome.
I think like a big part of the reason that a lot of Africa wasn't colonized, of course, was malaria.
Right.
But also, it wasn't economically viable. Even when Africa was conquered, it was a massive drain on the economies of Britain and France, and it was not profitable. Most of Africa was conquered, firstly, to stop the Germans getting it, and secondly, for prestige.
Right. Well, and it's like you get to a neo-colonialism, which is the colonialism that happened in like the second half of the Victorian era, was everything else has already been colonized. So like, what's left? I mean, the Congo Basin, like nobody would have ever wanted to go there if there was other stuff left to colonize, because it's just such a difficult area to make profitable in any way without like an insane investment of resources. So there should be some kind of like a prioritization system where it's like, but if we could still get a colony anywhere else, we probably don't need to be colonizing Patagonia or whatever. But
it's an interesting problem to have.
It is.
Like in the comments, like it needs to be profitable, so it's not like a newbie trap. It's like,
right.
But then just, I don't know.
Well,
the idea that all conquest is just an inherent good to the conquering nation is an iffy topic as well.
I think colonization can already be a newbie trap in EU4, because if you go expansion exploration and try to run 3 colonists in the 1500s, like, your economy is probably going to collapse unless you're playing as like Venice or someone who's already super rich.
6 ducats.
But
2 ducats for each colonist.
That can be a lot, That can be a lot in the early game. Let's talk about
trains.
Yes,
train.
Hearts of Iron, which is another one.
Father Loris with our train update for this week.
Yeah, railguns, which we knew were being added, are being a bit explained. It's another one I've got opinions of, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure.
Now, if you don't know much about railguns, they were basically not used in World War II much at all. I think they were only used in the siege of Sevastopol, and they were effective in that marginally. Apart from that, they were very much a World War I weapon. The Germans used it once in Sevastopol. That's about it. People did have railguns. So, for example, the British had railguns that were never really used, but could potentially be fired at Germany, but basically just be firing shells, just random bits of countryside. The Japanese had an interesting one. Basically, it was used as harbour defence, which most of these railguns were actually used for, primarily. and then it got shipped to Manchukuo during the Russian invasion, where it was used as defense against the Russians. But it wasn't. It was abandoned because the Japanese fled too quickly because the Russian advance was lightning fast. So it was basically abandoned. So railguns basically weren't really a thing in World War II. But we get to play with them. They are cool, nonetheless. So it's a little bit of old history, I guess. You can move them up and down railways, as you'd expect. And they give a bombardment bonus, which is quite a hefty bonus. It's plus 15% attack in a circular radius around with the actual railgun was used.
Yeah, that's pretty strong. Yeah. You can only, their production line is limited to 5 factories, so you can't like just insane mass produce them, which is kind of interesting. I think that's the first time they've done that for any kind of equipment.
Yeah.
They're also,
it kind of makes sense because most of the railguns weren't really created; they were grandfathered over from World War II. The Germans did prepare some. This is why Germany has railguns, because they were going to bombard the Maginot Line with them. But obviously, they didn't have to do that in the end. So they did develop them as a type of fort buster. And that's what they were used for in the Siege of Sevastopol. They basically used as a fort buster. Because basically what these railguns were was old naval equipment that you'd put on a battleship. That wasn't being used for a battleship, so we thought we'll have to do something with these things. So we put them on trains. And
it looks like they cost 800 production each, and they require steel, tungsten, and chromium. So these are not going to be cheap to build.
No, but they're very powerful. That's the weird thing about them, right? I mean, when they weren't very powerful, but again, I don't mind too much. I mean, it's historical, I guess. But and it's not very realistic, but at the same time, train guns are fucking cool, aren't they? They are really cool. Like, well, so I'm not too concerned about it.
It kind of strikes me the same way as like people have been asking for a long time for them to do like a Secret Weapons of World War II DLC, and this kind of feels like the same thing to me. Like, it's a completely ahistorical doctrine that nobody would have like actually gotten away with, but it lets you play Hearts of Iron in like a weird and fun way if you want to.
Yeah.
Where like you're just building these rail spokes out to every enemy city so that you can bombard them with these gigantic mega cannons. I think that could be a really fun fun way to try to play.
Yeah. Would be pretty cool.
Or if you ever get, I don't think I've ever actually been invaded on the mainland as the U.S., but that would be an interesting way to defend the U.S.
Well, the U.S. did have rail cannons. That was another thing. They were used, I think, in the Civil War, I believe.
Yeah, I think there's a mission in Ultimate General Civil War where you have to blow up a rail cannon. Which is, I don't think that battle actually ever happened, but yeah.
Where else were they used? The Boer War, I think one was deployed. Probably know too much about railway guns. But so there was one that was used in the Boer War, but it basically turned up, it got shipped over, and then went up to, where was it? Forgotten the name of a town, but it was going to be used to bombard it. By the time it arrived, the battle was already over, and that was the turning point to turn the Boer War into a guerrilla warfare battle. So obviously, a big fort-busting railway gun was completely useless. So
I would
just sat in South Africa for ages.
I would seriously buy in a second a DLC that just adds like an ahistorical bullshit mode to Hearts of Iron 4. Where you turn it on and you've got like airships and railway guns and like fucking warjacks and
like cardboard box from Battlefield 2042
Max, and you can like the Fat Man, like the nuke launchers from Fallout. Like, just give us all the weird shit and let me fight weird World War II. I've fought in normal World War II and also politically ahistorical World War II very many times. I would not mind at all if they added that kind of an option.
Seems
not everybody
like
would buy
territory, though.
What's that?
Is this like more mod territory?
I guess, but
if more people...
Sunset Invasion happened.
If enough people... Yeah, well, that was a bad fucking call.
That's not going to happen again, because remember how angry people were about Sunset Invasion?
The idea that you're using that to defend your idea is hilarious. Like,
this
is a reason why it shouldn't happen.
I think if you don't want a mode with airships and steampunk mechs for Hearts of Iron 4, then you just hate fun. That's what I think, but... I guess they'd be diesel. They'd be diesel mechs. They're not going to be using steampunk mechs at this point.
Yeah.
Maybe a mod that includes the what's it? That Polish artist whose art was turned into a game.
Yeah, Iron Harvest.
Iron Harvest. For Hearts of Iron.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm thinking.
Including the models as well. Like that'd be pretty badass.
But make it just a giant fucking spider that takes up like 4 provinces and.
The spider from Wild Wild West.
Yeah, deals damage in like a radius around it, like the railway guns do. It's like, yeah, that'd be amazing. I'd love that.
Mm-hmm.
It would annoy a lot of people. So yeah, they probably won't do it, but I would love it. I think we also have some modding news related to Humankind as well.
So recently, Humankind did a competition to basically give away a PC to have people submit maps, and my goodness, the amount of maps and stuff produced for Humankind. I was a huge fan of the Huge Map mod, it wasn't a mod, but a pretty big one. But my goodness, I just want to highlight how many different maps and really interesting ideas are on here now. There's a lot of stuff like there's remakes of Azeroth or that sort of thing. That's if you're interested in that sort of thing.
I've seen the Warhammer world as well.
Yeah, there's Warhammer.
I've seen Avatar on there. Yeah,
Warhammer.
The mod tools for Humankind are fantastic. We were just talking before the show about how like Paradox and Amplitude are making their games easier to mod, while Creative Assembly is making them harder to mod.
Yeah.
like Jomini is awesome. There's so much you can do with it. Humankind, I think, is actually they're like exposing like you can like mess with like the Unity libraries and stuff like that. Am I understanding that right? Like,
yes, you can. Yeah. You think you can, but they're gonna be introducing specifically a mod making thing, which makes it easier in the future. So I think it's already quite easy to do. Somebody's already made here, for example, end game config stuff and no turn time limits mods. So modding's already begun.
Yeah, the biggest problem with Humankind is that end turn thing.
Yeah,
so just remove that and add in, or even just having the standard ways that you end the game, like finish all the techs, get to Mars, conquer everyone, that kind of thing can still be the end trigger for the end screen. But just the turn thing is such a bad idea.
Yeah,
because it almost all the time. I mean, I'm sure you can get it done before that if you really push for it. But almost all the time, all of the late game interesting stuff is like after the end of the game.
Yeah, I've noticed that too. And I think the reason it exists is like in that like Civ 2 AAR, the famous one that's like the infinite apocalypse. Like I think they're worried that if you have like a lot of skilled players in multiplayer, they might be able to like just infinitely sabotage each other from getting the other victory conditions. So they want like to have a fallback of some kind.
Just the ability to turn it off then.
But there's no reason it shouldn't be an option in the menu. Yeah.
Well, I guess now it's a thing through mods, and like I said, like they haven't like fleshed out the moddability of the game yet, but it's definitely a plan. But the maps that people have created, there's already a map making tool on there, which is pretty good. It's pretty cool. This Tamriel looks pretty interesting too. Actually, I might actually play on this Tamriel one. Looks pretty. See, look at the verticality people have been making. It's amazing.
That's cool. I want like a terrain mod that makes humankind a little bit less yellow. I feel like the default terrain is like a little bit too much yellow. Like the grass looks really yellow in some biomes.
Yeah. Like there, for example. Which should be elsewhere, I guess, in this context.
Yeah, I'm interested to check some of these out for sure. Is the contest already over, or are they still?
Yeah, the contest is over. I think it ended on the 6th. Cool. I think, pretty sure.
Yeah. So if you want to enter that, you're out of luck. It's already over.
Sucks to be you.
Well, you can look at the results. They're pretty cool.
I know No Virtue did a terraformed Mars map that looked pretty cool.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
There's a couple of people in my Discord also making maps from it, so yeah, it'll be interesting to see what comes up.
Well, Lambert, other than recovering from an illness and
recovering, not there yet.
Well, you're still in the process of recovering. What have you been up to the last week?
Well, I haven't streamed very much because I've been sick.
Right.
But I have been mostly playing Humankind. Started an 8-player multiplayer. We do that on Fridays, and we've only done one session so far, but I would say that I'm probably winning, which is great. And that honestly, that's it. Like, that's all I've been doing.
Yeah.
Like, I have not been well enough to do anything else. So hopefully I'll be able to get back in the swing of things soon.
Yeah.
Here's hoping.
And where can people find you if they want to check that out?
Lord Lambert on Twitch. No, I'm Lord Lambert _ on Twitch. Lord Lambert on YouTube, and yeah. Also, I do D&D on Mondays on the Component Cast, and that's a lot of fun as well. You should check it
out. Loris, what's been going on in your life this last week?
DIY, very exciting.
Yeah,
making a bookshelf, and
that's what people tune in for.
Yeah. So I almost finished my bookshelf over there.
Yeah,
I'm gonna make another one behind me in the distant future. Yeah, that's my plans. Basically, it. A little bit of drawing.
Sweet.
Yeah. More DIY, mostly DIY. 99% DIY, and dying in the heat.
Oh, of course. Yeah. Yeah, I what have I been doing? I reviewed King's Bounty 2, which is a very it's a good tactical combat game with a kind of like aggressively mediocre open world RPG sitting on top of it. So yeah, my review's over on IGN. I didn't hate it. I just felt like, the combat was good. Everything else about it was but it's worth giving a shot. I also just started up Pathfinder Wrath of the Righteous this week, which is it is sort of a strategy game, kind of similar to Kingmaker. There is like a strategy layer to it rather than running a kingdom. It's you're running like a military campaign, which is pretty interesting. But yeah, classic CRPG with some strategy elements. I'm liking it so far. I'm not like a huge nerd on the Pathfinder setting, so like there's a lot of it for me that's like, I don't know what you guys are talking about. But yeah, I'm kind of getting up to speed and having fun with that. It's got a good. I think they've kind of dialed in how to make that combat system work on a PC pretty well at this point. At least if you get like your auto pause settings set up correctly and you turn on, there's like a turn-based mode, which is great. You can do a lot of cool stuff, like sneak your archers into like a little nook before the battle starts, and then have them start with a surprise attack, and then your melee line charges in and you flank them, and it feels like you're intelligently planning out like a D&D battle the way you would in the tabletop, rather than just everybody runs in and now I have to manage.
Wait, planning in D&D?
I plan.
That's the vast majority of D&D. You do more planning than literally any other kind of thing in D&D.
But like
and then the plans go to shit.
I felt like, at least before they added the turn-based mode, I felt like you couldn't really do that in a game like Pillars of Eternity because it was just the battle starts and then from then on it's just like mildly controlled chaos.
Yeah.
Whereas like Wrath of the Righteous, I didn't ever finish Kingmaker. I kind of got hung up on that one, but Wrath of the Righteous feels really good in terms of that tactical aspect of it. And you can find most of my stuff on Twitter. I'm Till Folkdog. I think that's all I've really been up to. I feel like I'm forgetting something, but it's been a very busy work week, so I didn't oh, and I finally beat Frostpunk.
Oh, you actually beat it now. Oh, we were talking about Frostpunk before the show, actually. Yeah,
I had played it a couple times before, but I had never actually beaten it, and I finally beat it.
Nice.
I just was like, I should probably actually finish this before the sequel comes.
It's very good.
Oh,
I super recommend it.
It's a very good like survival strategy game.
It's very grim.
Yeah, forces you to. It kind of asks you like how much of an authoritarian asshole will you become to ensure the survival of the human race? It's kind of the core conflict of it. And
survival of human race in the balance.
Yeah.
I was just gonna be authoritarian regardless.
Well, like, and I got scolded at the end for like we went too far, and I'm like, we're alive, motherfucker. I wouldn't be wagging your finger because I kept the human race alive.
Yeah, but
yes, still brave. Shut up.
I had to send some children into the mines. Not all of them came out, but they all would have frozen to death if I hadn't been here. So who's the real bad guy?
You have to play it like on hard mode. Frostpunk's at its best where you're like an inch away from total disaster.
Right.
Like, warning because there'll be spoilers for Frostpunk, what I'm about to say, so close your ears now, I guess, if you don't want to hear. But at the end, when the storm hits, I was like right on the cusp of just dying. I'd ran out of food. People were so angry. I passed a law and did round-the-clock executions to keep people in line, pretty much. Stop them rioting. I was like, all right, you can riot all you want, but like you'll soon calm down when you see this another public execution and another public execution.
Yeah,
we'll keep you all in line.
Yeah. So. I highly recommend that one. I'm interested in playing some of the other scenarios just to see how they're different.
Sorry, the Last Autumn is amazing. You'd love it.
Yeah, and I don't know. Do they reveal any more of like what's going on in the other scenarios?
A little bit. It gives you little tidbits, but it doesn't tell you the science of it.
Even when I built like a bunch of scouts and scouted every part of the map, it doesn't really tell you exactly why the apocalypse is happening.
Yeah,
you just find a bunch of different theories from a bunch of different people.
It doesn't tell you why, and people don't know, but they know it's happening, and gives you a bit of backstory about the state of the world.
That's cool.
But it didn't tell you why it's happening. Sure, at some point find out, but maybe humanity just doesn't know why it's happening, right?
Well, the sequel's coming out, so maybe but I wouldn't mind if they just kept it ambiguous. That's kind of cool too.
Yeah, same.
All right. That is going to probably do it for this week. But we'll be back next week with more grand strategy news and other random tangents. I believe Rose should be back next week, if I'm remembering right.
I think so, yeah.
And we might also have a guest. So look forward to that. And we'll see you then.
Yep. Take care. Yeah.